Opinions vary widely for the 8-0 BYU football program, but what they showed Saturday night against Iowa State, reinventing themselves offensively on the fly, as the great Thanos once upon a time told the Avengers, they are inevitable.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Coming up on today's show, we are talking about BYU and Iowa State, my film review Monday. What did I learn after rewatching the BYU game? Well, there's a new term in Cougar Nation. Get to know the Bear Raid. We'll talk all about that. We'll also talk BYU basketball. They have finished their exhibition season by beating North Carolina in the Delta Center. I was there. What did I take away? And what did I take away rewatching on ESPN Plus? We'll get into that. And then we'll finish up today's show talking about the rest of the Big 12. It's our Big 12 stock report, looking at what's going on in the league, because the championship game race, it's shaping up, and it's going to be quite a doozy down the stretch. We'll get to all that ahead on today's show, and it's all brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and redeem the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's dive right in on today's show, and let's talk about what's going on with the BYU football program. Now, what they showed Saturday night, losing LJ Martin, which, by the way, I will say this right here at the outset, I do not know anything on the status of LJ Martin as of the recording of this podcast, which is going up early Monday morning. It was recorded late Sunday night. But the simple fact of the matter is, losing LJ Martin for any significant period of time is an absolute gut punch for the BYU offense, because he has been kind of that bell cow, the engine that drives this BYU offense. Going into the Iowa State game, BYU is the 10th ranked team in terms of rushing yards per game, 233 on average. Well, after losing him in the first quarter of this game, they mustered 103 yards, which isn't awful. But what we saw is BYU, after losing him in the first quarter, Aaron Roderick scrapped, I'm sure, a large portion of his game plan, and BYU went to what I and others are affectionately dubbing the Bear Raid offense. Now, it's not true air raid, but it is Bear Bachmeier centric, and that is what's going to power BYU for however long LJ Martin might be out for, and I'm sincerely hoping he does not miss any time, quite frankly, but we'll see what happens there, what news may come out on that front. But as BYU moves forward here, what we saw Saturday night from Bear Bachmeier, and rewatching this game solidified it in my mind. We watched Aaron Roderick reinvent this offense on the fly and put it on the arm of his freshman quarterback. Now, I think we need to get past the fact that Bear Bachmeier is a 19-year-old true freshman. He's played 8 games of college football, 5 of them against Big 12 Power 4 opposition. Actually, no, 6 of them, excuse me, if you include Stanford. And what he has shown is, bit by bit, step by step, he is showing more and more of his prodigious capability as a quarterback. And Saturday night was the latest iteration of that, as he passes for 307 yards and, frankly, had the entire offense on him. BYU mustered just north of 400 yards. He had 356 total yards in this game. Tell me that that's not the Bear Raid. This is not the Bear Bachmeier-centric offense. The simple fact is, BYU understands that this kid is their absolute talisman, to use a soccer term, and everything that's going to happen the rest of the way this season might lie with him and his health and his ability to lead BYU to victories. If they have lost LJ Martin, like I said, for any significant period of time, we also saw Preston Rex get injured in this game. Sione Moa is still out, and the cat's out of the bag. Spencer Linton and others have said it on social media. My Insiders Group members know about this. If they don't, they've not been reading their text messages. Sione Moa is dealing with compartment syndrome that he suffered late in the East Carolina game and was exacerbated by the long plane ride home. Had to have emergency surgery and open up a major gash on his quad. So BYU, in theory, is down their top 3 running backs right now, with no definitive idea on timelines of return, etc., for any of them. So until they can find an option at running back, whether it's Jovesa Demuni, whether it's Enoch Nawahine, Bear Bachmeier, the offense is on you, dude. And the nice part is, he showed his ability to carry this offense against a very potent and very good Iowa State team. This Iowa State defense Their secondary, yeah, it's beat up. And I will use the term that RG3 used against Utah. That secondary, it might be cheeks. But the front seven, that's no joke. Big Citrus, Dominique Orange, and others, they made life tough for BYU offensively. And all Bear Bachmeier did was torch it with his arm. I don't know how good this kid is going to end up being. Speaking of Bear Bachmeier, and I call him a kid because I'm twice his age, but I'm absolutely floored at his ability to improvise on the fly, understand what Aaron Roderick and the rest of the offensive coaching staff is trying to do mid-game after losing LJ Martin, and all he does is go out there and make plays. I also give a major hat tip to guys like Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston. BYU essentially has two wide receivers right now, and we've heard from Aaron Roderick that they hope to have JoJo Phillips back for Texas Tech. At least that's the expectation. Adding him back in here in his 6'5" frame as well as his wheels, that will help BYU offensively, especially considering if they have to morph this offense now to maybe going away from being a run first offense to being more of a pass first offense. You need as many guys as you possibly can muster. And that doesn't also preclude guys like Carson Ryan from showing up in big doses as well. I loved what I saw from Bear Bachmeier on film rewatching that game. He showed a capability of owning the moment and owning a game and making it all about his ability to lead BYU almost single-handedly to a victory. Now, you don't get it done, obviously, without the help of the other guys around you, but when you generate 350 of the 400 yards, to use clean numbers there, yeah, that's pretty darn good, and it pretty much shows that the Bear Raid, it's absolutely here to stay for BYU. Other things I took away from this game quickly, because I don't want to belabor the point there, because I'm absolutely floored at his capability. But other things I saw in this game is BYU absolutely needs this bye week. Guys like LJ Martin obviously need a chance to maybe heal up and see if they're available. We also saw Jack Kelly, as Spencer Linton reported, leaving the game in a sling on his right arm after his left arm was the one that was injured earlier on this season. He's beat up. Isaiah Glaster looks like a guy who's maybe 70% of himself right now. He had a heavily taped ankle in that game. I'm telling you, this team, they are beat up. And Kalani Sitake said the science, he uses his sports science team, has said they will approach this bye differently than the first bye. The first bye, BYU kind of ground these guys down and really went after it. I would expect this is going to be a much lighter week, speaking of this bye week, in the hopes that you get a vast majority of these guys feeling as close to 100% as you can get them ahead of that Texas Tech game, because the schedule doesn't relent, folks. It gets only tougher from here because Texas Tech, they're absolutely intent on knocking BYU off when BYU shows up in Lubbock in just over a week's time, almost 2 weeks from now. Then you have TCU. Oh, and then you have Cincinnati, by the way, who faces Utah with College Game Day in town here in Salt Lake City this weekend. It's absolutely a gauntlet BYU is going through right now. They got to keep these guys healthy. I really thought that the gashing runs that Iowa State had in this game, rewatching it, was BYU getting out of alignment and having guys in the wrong gaps. A lot of times I saw BYU players, two players in a gap that only one player is supposed to be in. It leaves one gap open. And guess what Carson Hansen and others from Iowa State did? Oh, yeah, I'm going to take that hole and I'm going to exploit it. That's got to be cleaned up. And I think part of that may be due to the fact the linebacking core has been pretty well beat up. I think Siale Acera being lost in that game hurt BYU in terms of the run fits in this game. I expect that if he's available against Texas Tech, which I hope he is, that will help quite a bit. Other things, I loved rewatching the play. Kevin Doe, I got to give a massive shout out to Kevin Doe. He engages with Ngoy, I think it was like David Ngoy or something like that, the Iowa State punt return team, and stays engaged with him. You can kind of see, I think Kevin Doe realized the ball's bouncing around near his feet, and all he does is stay engaged with Ngoy and kind of steer him right towards it, and Ngoy kicks that ball, and BYU recovers that ball, ends up scoring a touchdown on that drive. What an incredible heads-up play that is, and like I said, some people may call BYU lucky. You know what? I'm more and more convinced the older I get that you create your own luck. And you want to talk about a lucky play in that circumstance? That wasn't just pure luck. That was creating your own luck, because Kevin Doe steered that guy right towards that ball. He kicks it, Moribamba falls on it, and BYU gains an extra possession they may have otherwise not had. Absolutely incredible. Now, you want to talk about a little bit of luck? The missed touchdown pass from Rocco Becht, I think it was Flora or something like that, had that ball go right through his hands off his shoulder pads. Had he caught that, all of a sudden Iowa State's down 7 with time to get back into this contest and make it a game down the stretch. That is the luck, I guess you could say, that exists out there for BYU. But I really do think that this BYU team, they create their own luck. Other guys who stood out to me in this game, Logan Latui, what a performance for him. Bodie Schoonover, John Talmoya-Payao. I think they all had their moments. And in the second half, BYU's defensive line, so much better than it was in the first half. Evan Johnson, absolutely elite. It felt like both run and pass defense. He had the game-sealing interception late in this game. I also really thought that guys like Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston, rewatching this, it's absolutely incredible what they were doing because they were running incredibly precise routes, finding themselves open, and then after that, exploiting the Iowa State secondary's inability to tackle them for yak. Absolutely incredible to see that all go down. So overall, really impressed with how BYU adjusted on the fly in that game. And yet again, I said it in the open of today's show, kind of showing that they're inevitable. You try and take one thing away from them, they find another way to get it done. And this time, it's all about the Bear Raid offense because that sure looks like it's the key to success going forward for BYU so long as LJ Martin is unavailable. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about BYU basketball. I watched that game in the Delta Center on Friday night when they took on North Carolina. Well, I rewatched it again on ESPN Plus to get a better feel for what I took away from it. We're going to get into that on our Film Review Monday as it continue on right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. College football is so back, everybody, and I, for one, cannot be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, and really, there's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting your tickets to said games, that can be like kind of the downer in all of this. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout and costing you maybe an arm and a leg in terms of what you expected to pay. That's why I want you guys to use Game Time. It is the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay, and the best part about Game Time, in a couple of taps, you can see amazing deals. The best part, it makes it super simple. You can see your exact view from your seat as well, and what you see is what you pay. I will reiterate that one more time. There's no surprise fees, extra, being added on at the end of your checkout experience. It's the fastest, cheapest, and most less stressful way. I think I butchered that there. Than any other way I bought tickets, and I want you guys to do it as well. So take a guesswork out of buying your tickets and do it with our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and redeem the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, download Game Time today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you who have reached out over the weekend. Interaction you guys have had, it absolutely means the world to me. You guys enjoy this show as much as you do. Just want to encourage you guys, please subscribe, rate, and review. Share this show with your family and friends. And if you're on YouTube, I'm just going to encourage you guys more and more to do this. I should do it more. There's a little thumbs up button. Click it once. That's all you got to do. Supports the show, helps the algorithm. You guys get the whole gist, and appreciate any and all support you guys can lend in that respect. All right, so BYU basketball beat North Carolina 78-76 on Friday night. And the thing I took away from BYU basketball as they now get ready, they'll face off against Villanova a week from tonight, speaking of Monday, November 3rd, down there in Las Vegas. The biggest thing I took away from Friday night is I'm still kind of wondering what the identity of this BYU basketball team is going to be. Now, does it need to be clearly defined at this point? No, it does not. And in fact, I'd be kind of worried if it did. Because the simple fact of the matter is we learned about the identity of this BYU basketball team last year, kind of halfway through the season when Big 12 play started really, really rough. And all of a sudden, BYU figured some things out, started playing more as a cohesive unit, and really generated a really nice offense based on the threes and at the rim. Now, it's always going to be the hallmark of Kevin Young's team is either you're at the rim scoring or you're shooting threes. But what I noticed on Friday night, and those of you who were there or watching this probably saw it as well, is that A.J. DeBonsa and Robert Wright III in particular, they like to have the ball in their hands a lot, and they like to dribble a lot. And there is one person who was sitting next to me on Media Row at that game that we're talking decades of basketball knowledge. And I asked them, hey, what's the takeaway that you're watching with this? They said, those two guys, they're going to have to figure out how to play within the framework of this team and keep their teammates involved, all the while keeping their touches as they feel that they need to get them up there. That may sound convoluted, but what it essentially meant to me is that they were saying, hey, BYU needs to learn how to play with the pass a little more than going ISO with Robert Wright III or AJ DeBonsa. In individual circumstances, when you're down a bucket and you need somebody just to generate something late in the shot clock, oh yeah, those are the two guys that toss the ball to and say, hey, go manufacture some offense. But earlier on in the shot clock, we need to see more fluidity, more, playing with the pass from this BYU basketball team than what we saw against North Carolina. Now, they did enough to win the basketball game. I can't argue with what they showed in that. And AJ DeBonsa and Robert Wright III showed some really nice things. But Kevin Young said it himself. He said in the post-game press conference, and he said it himself, that Robert Wright III is still trying to kind of get his bearings about him. So that indicates to me that Rob's just kind of playing on instinct right now. And as he continues to kind of get more and more ingrained in practice, going through workouts with the team and the like, because he's been out due to some injury concerns, so long as that comes along, BYU is going to be just fine. The other thing I was interested to hear from Kevin Young is that he's going to play these games with guys on the court for longer stretches than they have in previous iterations of his BYU basketball tenure. Now, it's only one season, but remember, last year, it becomes like wholesale changes. Like the first unit would go in, second unit comes out, and it would kind of vice versa. He is actually planning, as he said on Friday night, to send guys out on the court like Rob Wright, like AJ DeBonsa, Richie Saunders, etc., and play the 2 or 3 of those guys for maybe a 5, 6, 7 minute, even 8-minute stretch to let them just kind of run things and get a longer run there. I'm interested to see how that goes because it's kind of platooning, as he said, to keep guys fresh and on the court. He also pointed to the fact that BYU needs to get Dawson Baker back because he believes that Dawson is very capable of being the secondary ball handler to any of those 3 and help take pressure off of them. The hope is that Dawson Baker is available soon. We'll see what happens. He's been dealing with some injury concerns all summer long, as Kevin Young pointed out. But I do think that the way things are trending for this BYU basketball team are positive, all things considered. I don't want to come on here and it's all doom and gloom. It's far from that. It's just that I'm interested to see how this morphs. If it is going to be maybe more ISO ball than we saw a year ago from this BYU basketball team, that's going to be the hallmark of this team, or if we will see it morph to where, yeah, it's more of a team-centric approach, but late in games when you need those buckets, you talk about certified bucket getters is a term I have absolutely loved about NBA basketball teams. Well, what it means is there are guys out there who are capable of generating their own looks offensively, and that's what AJ DeBonsa, that's what Rob Wright III, that's what they're there for BYU late in games. There are going to be possessions that, yes, you have 10 seconds to go on the clock. AJ's got the ball in his hands, and essentially it's like, go create something. That ability is going to help BYU out, especially late in games as the Big 12 season wears on, that you find yourself just needing to manufacture some offense and you need to have maybe one guy take over. That's what AJ's there for. That's what Rob Wright is there for. Richie Saunders, I think he's got some of that in him, but Richie is more of a guy who's going to generate his offensive looks off playing with the pass, off being kind of in the corner when those guys go to the rim and dish it out to him for a 3. I also want to see his shooting come along because he's been fairly ice cold. Now, neither team, I'm telling you, I think we saw a combined 9 threes made among North Carolina and BYU on like 30-plus attempts. It was brutal shooting-wise from beyond the arc at the Delta Center on Friday night. But Richie was cold against Nebraska and was not great against North Carolina, and you want to see that come along as well. And rewatching it, it's not easy. He's not having a tough time getting shots. He's actually getting really, really good looks, it feels like, for the most part. He just got to dial it in and start knocking them down. And hopefully this week, as they kind of morph into game prep mode, because it's on, because a week from tonight, it's in Las Vegas, and the Cougars are going to go at it against Villanova. It's going to be interesting to see how BYU manages this non-conference slate, because it's tough. There's a lot of really good teams on there. And yes, you have to understand that they're probably going to absorb some losses in this non-conference slate. But Kevin Young, he said it last year at the end of the non-conference slate and early on in Big 12 play that he felt like the preseason, the non-conference slate BYU played a season ago, did them no favors in being prepared for Big 12 play. And that's why they started, was it 1-3 and like 2-4 in Big 12 play? Absolutely horrendous start. Now, they more than made up for it down the stretch, but he wants to hit the ground running when it comes to Big 12 play come early January, and that's why they're playing UConn. That's why they're playing Villanova down there in Las Vegas. That's why they're going to play Clemson in New York City, among other games. You guys know what I'm talking about. The non-conference slate, it is stout. It's got a lot of high-profile matchups, and more importantly, they're going to test this BYU team and I think force them to learn a lot about themselves in very quick succession. I'm interested to see where it kind of goes as this non-conference schedule goes along. And then once Big 12 play arrives, man, it's on. Because watching some of the other storylines about the Big 12 and talking with my buddies over at Locked On College Basketball, guys like Isaac Shade, etc., it's going to be very interesting to see what the Big 12 ends up being, because we got Darren Peterson over at Kansas. He was absolutely cooking the other night in their exhibition game. I got guys like Koa Pete down there at Arizona. There's some really, really good young talent in this Big 12 conference, but it's also a conference that's laden with a lot of veteran players. I'm talking about the likes of Richie Saunders. Kind of that influx of young talent against kind of the vets who have been proven options. The nice part is, you don't have to worry about either way when it comes to BYU. They've got a nice blend of that young talent. AJ DeBonsa is about as good as anybody can ever hope he's going to be. And he showed that again Friday night because he had multiple instances. He got blocked at one point by Caleb Wilson, who, by the way, is a fantastic player in his own right. And what does he respond the next two possessions individually himself? He swats two North Carolina players, including Wilson himself, I think. I love AJ. He loves playing the game of basketball, and he plays both ends of the court. This is not just a pure scoring guy. He can take over and play as good as anybody offensively, but he also gets it done on the defensive end of the court, and I love that about him. So that's kind of a microcosm, as the young talent for BYU is there, but also you got established veterans, Keba Keita, Rob Wright, even though he's a sophomore, obviously Richie Saunders being a super senior that he is now. That veteran-laden presence on this team, I think it's going to help BYU navigate a lot of the pitfalls this schedule may have for them, because, yeah, some games, AJ is going to be cooking. He's going to go off, and he's absolutely going to own the opponent. There's going to be other games, well, he's going to be the focal point of the opposing defense, and that's when you need to have guys like Rob Wright and Richie Saunders pick up that slack. So I love the roster construction that Kevin Young has provided, and while Friday night has me questioning just a couple of things with regards to identity for BYU, sure looks like this team, they've got everything they need to win and win at a high level all season long. And I, for one, I'm looking forward to seeing how they perform, obviously starting next Monday night down there in Las Vegas. All right, coming up next, we will take a look at the Big 12 as a whole in football. It's our Big 12 stock report. The Big 12 championship game race, I think, is going to be absolutely electric down the stretch. And I think we got a preview of that from this past weekend. We'll get into why I think that is the case and how it's looking right now, coming up next right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen today. I want to encourage you guys to check out our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if it's the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next bucket to fourth quarter comebacks and quite literally anything else you guys want to bet on. You can combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout, or if you're trying to look at futures odds, all of that is available to you guys from our friends over at FanDuel. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push in a game. Right now, new customers can win $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Simple as that. Put $5 down. If your bet wins, you win $300 in bonus bets. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, as they are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not signed up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group, what are you waiting for? Get the inside scoop on all things BYU that I'm hearing, both football and basketball, and join us today. The link is in the show notes below if you want to scroll down a little bit, or reach out to us via social media. I had a couple of you do that over the weekend, and hopefully we'll get you guys squared away if we have not done so already as members of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. The kicker is you get a 14-day free trial, 2 full weeks before you charge a single penny, and it's just $5 a month after that to be a part of this and really kind of show how big of a fan you are of Locked On Cougars. All right, before we go on today's show, let's look at the Big 12 overall. Now, right now, the Big 12 race is going to be, I think, a mess down the stretch. And the reason I think that is you've got a lot of teams near the top of this league, and every one of them are capable of either upsetting another team on any given weekend or finding themselves on upset alert. And looking at it, BYU and Cincinnati obviously are atop the league at 5-0 each. BYU ranked 10th in the country now, and Bearcats, speaking of Cincinnati, at 17. Utah faces Cincinnati this Saturday at Rice Eccles Stadium. It'd be cool if they moved it to Provo and played a neutral site game, but it's not the case. They're playing at Rice Eccles Stadium. And if Utah wins that game against Cincinnati, Utah vaults themselves right back into the Big 12 race. But if Cincinnati wins, they keep the pressure on BYU and actually take a very temporary lead over the Cougars as the Cougars are idle this coming weekend. It's in many respects kind of a microcosm of what this Big 12 race is going to be, because Cincinnati and BYU are 5-0, Texas Tech and Houston are at 4-1, and then you've got 4 teams sitting at 3-2 right now, all of which are not out of the race by any means at this juncture. That shows you that half of this league is still alive in this Big 12 race. Now, Iowa State, Baylor, Kansas, all at 2-3, Arizona at 1-3. They can kind of believe if everything starts eating each other, speaking of the rest of the league starts eating each other, they can find themselves back in the race. But for the topic of this conversation, there are 8 teams alive in this race, and it's going to be a wild one, I really think. The nice part is you got 5 teams in the Big 12 that are ranked in the national rankings. Utah at 24, Houston 22, Texas Tech 13, Cincinnati 17, and BYU 10. And all of them eyes are on going to Arlington. And I got to say, Texas Tech is going to be an interesting case because if you did not see it yesterday, Will Hammond, who obviously has been a key piece of this offense, filling in for the injured Baron Morton, tore his ACL. So now their super sub quarterback for the Texas Tech Red Raiders is done for the year. It's going to be all on Baron Morton now moving forward for Texas Tech. Can they get it done? It's a great question, because if he can't, and if he gets injured once again, does Tech fall off? And all of a sudden, are they out of the race when they were the odds-on favorite to play in Arlington? These injuries, man, BYU's absorbed a number of them themselves. And if LJ Martin is out for any significant period of time, could BYU fall off? This is the give and take of all of this right now. Utah absolutely demolished Colorado. If you did not see it late Saturday night, 53-7 was the final. But I'm telling you, had Utah kept the pedal to the metal, they could have scored 70, 80, 90. I don't know what they could have scored. And Coach Prime said it himself. I've never got beat that bad since my mom gave me a whooping. Crazy, crazy times in the Big 12. And Houston showed that they are absolutely a force in this league. 24-16, beating Arizona State, who previously just upset Texas Tech. That shows that Willie Fritz's Cougars, speaking of the Red Cougars, they've got some juice to them as well. So this Big 12 race, folks, get ready. It is going to be an absolute wild ride down the stretch, and get excited, because guess what? BYU, they're in a catbird seat right now, and they just got to keep doing their thing. They talk about controlling the controllable. Well, you know what you can control? Winning football games. Take this week off, rest up, get healed up as much as possible, and hit the ground running when you head to Lubbock a week from Saturday, and hopefully keep yourself right there in the thick, if not at the top of the Big 12 conference title race. All right. That is going to do it for today's edition of the show. Oh, one other note. If you did not pay attention to it, Brian Kelly got fired yesterday at LSU. This coaching cycle upcoming is going to be absolutely wild, and I'm going to talk more about that tomorrow and how it impacts BYU, and in particular, Kalani Sitake, because let's just put it this way. Kalani Sitake is going to be a guy who's going to be mentioned a lot more for head coaching openings, especially considering BYU is now open back-to-back seasons 8-0 for the first time in program history. He's doing great things, and don't think other people out there aren't noticing what BYU's doing and what he is doing at the helm of the BYU football program. So we'll talk about that on tomorrow's edition of the show. But as always, thank you for your support of this podcast. Please check out Locked On Big 12 if you don't already. Drake Toll's got you covered every single day. It's available wherever you get your podcasts, just like this one, and also available on YouTube. Make that your second listen of the day if you have not made it already a part of your day, I should say. So as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And until tomorrow, everybody, come back and be an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.